Now we've got used to sketching in 2-point perspective, we're going to start to add a little bit more detail into the drawing. So we'll start exactly the same and we'll keep that consistency of how we're starting to make it a little bit easier to do. So we're going to start with our horizon line, nice and wide, nice and straight, with the vanishing points at either end. Then we're going to start with our simple cuboid, and we're going to make it relatively flat. So we draw our vertical edge, and remember we're doing these lines slightly longer than what we need them, so the section we end up with is nice and straight. Starting with our ghost lines over to the one vanishing point, and then from the bottom as well. Okay, so we've got the top and the bottom there. Rotate your page to make it really comfortable, I can't stress that enough. And then we'll go into the other vanishing point as well with nice light lines, and it really doesn't matter if we just miss very slightly. The more you practice, the better you will get. Obviously I'm out of practice at the moment, clearly. We're then going to just straighten off the ends and cut that away. And from the tops where these join, we're going to opposite vanishing points. So this is all quite familiar to everyone now as we're going along, okay? So we have our basic shape there. That's going to be the bottom. We're going to create kind of an open box, and the opening is going to be straight up. So we're going to start these lines from the corners nice and vertically. Okay, from the top of this line then, we're going to go to the opposite vanishing point. Start with your ghost lines first, make it easy for yourself. Then we've already got that one joined, so this one now is the next one to join to the vanishing point. And that's going to be our open back to this, and we'll chop that off with how wide we want it. So we want it just in that kind of region there, and you can see now we've got, it looks like a lid onto our box in 2-point perspective. The issue is, it's all solid, so we're going to go ahead and try and hollow that out now before we add our thick and thin lines in. So let's imagine we've made it out of timber, so we're giving this a thickness. So parallel with these edges, we're then going to draw these construction lines in, just parallel with the vertical edges, because we're only working in 2-point perspective. Then, from the top of this edge, or this line here, we're going to go to the opposite vanishing point, using your ghost lines again. And you can see it's connected to that one there. Then we'll do the same from this one, going the other way. Okay, and it doesn't matter, mine's very slightly off there, that's absolutely fine. And from this corner as well, we're going to join to both vanishing points again. Okay, and we've just got a few more lines to do, and this drawing is nearly finished and ready to enhance. So by adding these shapes within each other, it gets quite complex, and you've got lots of lines going on, which will hopefully get clarified when we use our thick and thin line technique. So just in from this corner, we're going to join to the other vanishing point, and then we'll do the same on the other side. So I'm going to rotate my page round, and we're going to there. So from here to there, ghost lines in, and we can draw that. So now we can see we've actually got the thickness. We just need to give it a little bit of depth. So if you imagine you're looking at this shape now from this side, you can see the outsides on here. You can't see the backs of them sides. So on the inside of the box, we can see these edges, but we can't see the ones on this side or in here. Okay, so we're just going to draw this vertical edge in, and then just up from the bottom, because we're imagining there is a base on there, we can join this way. So coming through that point, and the vanishing point we're extending through to about here, but we're not going to see it past this edge, so we'll stop there. So if we just draw that one in there, and it's going to be the same the other way, so we're coming through there and just stopping in there. Okay, finally we'll do the same in this point. So from that corner we're going to join to the opposite vanishing point, and then we can add the depth of this in. So this is only going to be very shallow. Imagine this thickness here repeated on this side, so roughly that thickness, and then where they join we can go from this vanishing point now. So from this vanishing point through my shape and stopping where it's hitting the edge. You've always got to imagine the parts that you can see and what you won't see. So we've got quite a complex shape there now being constructed in 2-point perspective. We're going to go ahead then and darken the outline, as we know from the thick and thin line technique that we used in the other tutorials, but it does get a little bit more complex than just being the outline at this stage, and we'll explain that once we've got the outline done. And if it becomes a little bit scribbly, I wouldn't worry too much, just try and keep it neat-ish. Okay, you don't want it looking too scruffy. So we've got the outline darkened, it's easier to see, but there's more dark lines required. So in a thick and thin line technique, we're going to imagine there's a spider on our work. So let's just draw a quick cube with an indent, just for the sake of this explanation. Okay, so we've got a quick cube drawn down here, absolutely terribly, may I add. So on here now, we know that the outline is going to be thick, so really clearly it's thick. To figure out the other lines, we need to imagine there's a spider on the work. And if the spider crawls along the edge and remains visible, then that line will be thin. If it crawled along the edge and it would disappear when it goes to the other side, that line becomes thick. So for this line here, we could see it on both sides, it remains thin. For this line here, if we saw it and it came over, we'd still see it. For this line, we'd see it and we'd see it here. We'd see it here, we'd see it there. Okay? The parts that we know would now need to be darker. This line, where the spider crawls along the edge and it would disappear inside, and the same at the top here. So those two lines would become thick or dark. Okay? So we're going to repeat that process on our back box at the top. So spiders crawling along these edges, we know what could be seen, what can't. This one here would disappear, so that's going to become a darker line. As with this line at the top here, it's a darker line. At the bottom, it's going to be this line, and it's going to be this line in here too. So you can see our thick and thin line now has made that really clear for our 2-point perspective open box. Okay, so if you bear in mind the spider rule, it's going to make drawing thick and thin lines a lot easier for you. The final part then is adding our landing box. So we're just going to do a nice vertical rectangle. It can be horizontal or vertical, just don't do it on the angle. And we're going to chop that off. So keeping the lines fairly straight, don't be too fussy. Okay, that doesn't quite line up. It would look better if it did line up as it's going up the page there. But for now, I'm going to persevere. Okay, we'll cross-hatch in the box. You can render it with a crayon if you like. Cross-hatching saves that little bit of time. And you can see I'm not even going to the bottom of the box on this one, which is absolutely fine. You don't have to every time. So cross-hatch on here. And it's just making that stand off the page. If you had multiple drawings, like we covered in the last tutorial, it can help link them together too. And just finish up into that corner. Okay, in fact, if you want, what you can do is just shade in a little bit darker nearer the object, and using a technique that involved a little bit more scribbling. But it also helps your object stand away from the page. And I know some of my colleagues prefer this method when they're doing their landing boxes. So you can see there we've got our finished 2-point perspective shape. So it's just an open box with the hollows drawn in. We've applied the thick and thin line technique and our landing box to it as well. And even with all of the mistakes and the inaccuracies, the final drawing is what we're bothered about, and it looks fairly accurate to what I intended. Good luck!